So welcome to the last video in the Accelerator on measuring sustainability and ESG. Before we step into any of this, just know that it is a journey. Just reminding you again that there's a bit to take in. I'll try to keep this video short, and we'll be leaving a bit more information and resources on where you can go and actually get help on measurements. So what you need to know to help reduce some stress is that the tech already exists. And it's making it easier and easier and easier. It's saturated even in terms of software reporting. You got to engage your team early, that I know you're aware of, and to get an industry expert, because there's so many different areas on sustainability. So you can get an internal person, but you want to make sure that you give the appropriate time, space, and authority, especially if it is someone internally, to be measuring these things. So in my experience working with organizations that have brought in a third-party consultant, and it's not at the board level, but it's at like a middle management, that person takes ages to get data from finance or procurement or whatever. So if that came from board level and was really clearly communicated to everybody that this needs to be done over a certain time frame, it generally gets done. So make sure that the authority is there. So I'll give you an example of what this kind of looks like for a small to medium-sized firm. There is investment, initial investment. So if you're like a manufacturing kind of company, then you're looking at an investment minimum of 50K. You're getting things like sensors and devices, networking, so that's Internet of Things, a cloud solution, there's installation and integration, annual maintenance of these things, and then training to get people onboarded, right? So there is investment, maybe potentially small investment if, this is like nothing to a small investment. But the benefits of this is that you qualify for larger tenders, because now you're saying, no, we do our reporting. We have some kind of plan in place. We're trying to reduce this, right? You also earn points on tenders. So you're looking at more and more government and large NGO. You look at the UN, for example, and some of their tenders. They have like 20 to up to 30% of the ratings in their tenders just for sustainability and ESG and reporting. So be aware that this is a growing trend in procurement. It also helps you keep existing customers because they're faced to be reporting as well. And the other benefit, right down the bottom, unfortunately, is less costs on energy, water, maintenance, and labor as well, because you're optimizing across all these things. This is helping you automate. So I wanted to put that out there first, that's kind of quickly what that looks like. But in terms of what you do, one of the first steps is to figure out a framework that you're going to use. And there's heaps, the TCFD, there's GRI. There was a while where there was like a new framework popping out every week. I think we're starting to see less of these and more taxonomies from governments, which are aligning to fairly well-established disclosure methods. One thing that I will say that I forgot is to also tie it in with the UN SDGs, the UN Sustainable Development Goals. This is not a proper framework. It's just 17 goals that everyone kind of aligns to. And it's helpful because it aligns you to what the bigger companies are saying from their commitments to a lot of these development goals, and they're very much a part of these things because, whether it's for PR or whether they genuinely believe in it because of the sheer amount of influence that they have. But either way, it's helpful to sort of align your goals with the UN SDGs as well. And while doing that, just remember that when you're aligning with those, you're also wanting to align with these two prominent policies. So the CSRD, the Corporate Social Responsibility Reporting Directive, and or the CBAM, the Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism, which are all frameworks that also use the ESRS, which the standards are aligned with. So it all helps. And likewise with ISO standards too. So I will leave some comments to further reading here. But generally, when you're looking for a framework, it gives you like a template as to how and what kind of format that you should be doing your reporting in. So how do we start then? Now we've picked a framework. The next step is to map and measure what it is, where it is, your emissions and pollution and things are actually coming from. So the two ways of doing this is the journey map, or to get life cycle assessments. You have your supply chain audits. So now you've got a framework at a big picture level. You're mapping all the areas in your business in a value chain, just like what we did with the product journey map or the people journey map, to measure and see, well, where these emissions are coming from. And that helps you with the supply chain audit as well. So there's two things that you can do. You set some KPIs, and then you start to monitor across these three things. Even if you're at the board level, you're also overseeing yourself to make sure you've got board diversity, the board is independent, the members are independent, so there's no conflict of interest. You're engaging in anti-corruption training, you've got your anti-corruption policies in place, ethical sourcing compliance. So there's a lot there that you can do to monitor. But let's talk about how to monitor and how to measure. So in the following slides, we're going to look at from the most bootstrapped way of doing this to a much more complex, tech-driven, automated way of measuring. So the first step is, like, now you got your template, you could just measure these manually. So you find your source documents, which are like your invoices, your utility bills, employee health and safety plans, and they go into the templates that you've got, which are just like on Excel. This is great if you have limited data points, you're not a very big business, and it's not very high volumes. So for example, if you're a digital or service-based company, this might be the way to go, especially if you're just starting this out to do a pilot. The challenges of this are pretty obvious. Time consuming, human error potential, and it's also very expensive to scale because you just got to hire lots and lots of people. The next step is to use ESG software. So those templates that you're looking for are already embedded into the software. You might have a pre-prepared Excel sheet or a CSV file before that you just upload things in bulk. For example, energy consumption data, and you just get that extracted from your provider and it's already there. You don't have to upload the utility bills one by one. It's best for when you're transitioning to an automated system, but also for periodical data uploads as well. You save more time than the previous one, but it is still time consuming. It still has potential for errors. You got people in the process, and it requires constant formatting and data validation as well, because you're still having to input from a manual into a software version. That still saves you time, but not as much time as integrated software. But this is assuming that you're probably already a larger organization, and that ESG software is connected already to your accounting software, your HR platforms, your energy management systems, your fleet management systems, so all of the, like, everywhere that your trucks and your cars are going, all of that is updated into the ESG software because it knows how many miles it's done, like miles have been done in the last month, for example. So it can just calculate that for you. Now, when you're looking for this sort of software, especially the integrated one, you want to make sure that there is data input, validation, and a review feature. What I mean by that is it goes on cloud, for example, and then a department that might be in a completely different country to yours is like needing to assess this, or the data input is coming in from a factory that's in another like state or another region. You want to review that and validate that that data is correct. So if it's on cloud, that really helps that you can kind of check that data together. So look for that. It's really helpful. And it's best for companies with existing enterprise software. So if you're already subscribing to something big, or your suppliers are using platforms that can integrate, it just makes it so much easier to streamline that data real time. There are some challenges, of course. The integration setup can be quite complex and expensive, especially if your supplier or this is like a bespoke software that you're getting, then things start taking a bit of time. And it certainly requires more technical expertise as well, as you could probably imagine, much more complex. And then you've got ESG software with IoT. You could be integrated software with IoT, but this is just the IoT factor. So IoT is the Internet of Things, or the Internet of Things devices. So this is like sensors and boxes which help conglomerate all that data and send it up to a satellite to come to your companies, and they kind of like, or drones even if you're in agriculture. This is best for companies that manage high data volumes, like in manufacturing or agriculture, for example. And the challenges certainly are high upfront investment. It does require ongoing maintenance and tech calibration as well, because all these sensors need to be recalibrated to make sure that they're reporting accurately. And then another level up is still with ESG software, but with supplier and third-party uploads. So you got a feature on your ESG software that allows your suppliers, your contractors, your volunteers, whoever it is, to upload the sustainability data directly. So for example, how far they drove, or how long they worked, or how much material that they used, how much they collected, or whatever it is, they upload that. It's great when you have a complex supply chain and you need a more detailed scope 3 data because your commitments are just so big, or you're under a certain form of compliance. So it's great for that. Challenges, as you can imagine, ensuring data quality and consistency from third parties. So you're going to be expected to do a bit more due diligence. There's also reliance on supply cooperation as well, and the training and onboarding cost that comes with third parties. So it could be a mix of all of these things that we've said so far. And then we've got third-party data providers. So this is with purchase data and benchmarks. So for example, buying carbon intensity data for supply chain analysis. So if you're importing things, but you don't know the individual carbon cost of a not pot plant, but like a washing machine or whatever, for example, then you can buy that data from engineering companies or consulting firms that have already done it, buy it from them. Or if you're doing studies on other areas like on water and stuff, you can purchase it from consulting companies, engineering companies. So generally, if you're clearly lacking that data and it doesn't make sense to spend a gigantic amount of money to find it out for your individual products, then you can buy it, right? So challenges here still costly, and is the risk is that you're dependent on their data accuracy, relevance, and timeliness, because if it's data from 20 years ago, it is not timely. Let's be honest, it is not timely at all. This gets its own slide, own fancy slide, because despite doing all of that stuff, you still need to do your internal quality checks and third-party audits to make sure that the data is accurate. And then a nice to have, this is benchmarking with ESG rating agencies. So this is for much larger firms who are looking to identify gaps and opportunities, for example, depending on where they are competition. This is more for the sort of sustainable finance or finance sector, to compare investment, to compare companies before you put money down and say, well, how do I compare from, say, Tesla and Procter & Gamble, which are two completely different companies? Where should I be putting my money based on their ESG data? So the other thing that it does is that it also helps you with credibility and transparency for things like lower interest green loans. So you will see that there's more and more funding out there for companies that are trying to transition or trying to expand and looking for financing. So this concludes this part of the video. There'll be more tips with videos from software providers and people in the area, and from auditors as well, who can help you ensure that your ESG reporting is audit ready. So stay tuned, and I look forward to seeing you in the Accelerator and the skill drills. And as usual, if you have any questions on this, like you're not part of the Accelerator or the Mastermind, you're watching this on YouTube or something, then send us a direct message and we will help to answer your question. And if we don't know, we will refer you to the best providers that we know. And on that note, we wish you absolute best with your sustainability journey. Leave feedback in the comments. Any questions that you might have, we will come back and respond.